to the world.
The Feel Good Friday with BIBI, AMINA, PHILI. Every Fridays from 2 to 3 for your weekly dose of positivity and joy, leaving you feeling uplifted and inspired. Stay tuned for the Feel Good stories, uplifting nasheeds, and a whole lot of smiles. It's all about the vibes and all the good stuff.
Radio Ansar. You could have searched for 1,000 hours, wouldn't have made a change. You could have looked for 1,000 days and you would have stayed the same. It's only by the will of God that you're here today. Just remember who you are before you walk away. Stand on top of the mountains and take in the surroundings. Think of all of the blessings he gave, no point even counting. I made so many thousands and I gave it away to the poor. I'm just praying I'm making some more, cause I only wanna please my Lord. Allah's my witness and I know he's watching me for sure. I got rid of the interest, I ain't looking at waging a war. A lot of places that I haven't been yet and I really just wanna explore. But if I die tomorrow, hope I die with my head on the floor. Take me away from here, I've had enough of life. He made it way too clear, still they choose to deny. Running around in lost, chasing their own desire. Before the trumpet blows, save them from the fire. Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, kids of all ages. Of course, it is the Feel Good Friday, and I'm your host, BIBI, AMINA, PHILI, coming to you live on Radio Al Ansar on 90.4 FM in Durban and 105.6 FM in Pietermaritzburg. Of course, I am your host, BIBI, AMINA, PHILI, and I'm thrilled to share this special day with all of you amazing listeners. And as we dive into the weekend, I'm obviously excited to bring you a fantastic show live on 90.4 FM in Durban and 105.6 FM in Pietermaritzburg. It's gone by exactly 13 minutes past the hour of 2. And of course, we are live. Don't miss out on the fun. Of course, tune in, download our app, catch us on Facebook and YouTube as well, or even Spotify. So let's kick off this Jummah Mubarak with a spiritually uplifting day. Jummah Mubarak to you and yours, hoping that you are having yourself a fantastic Friday afternoon. Of course, it's 90.4 FM in Durban and 105.6 FM in Pietermaritzburg. A great lineup today, of course, but like we know it and we say it, let's make the end of the week better together. So on that note, let's get that show on the road.
Radio Al Ansar, Durban, 90.4 FM. Pietermaritzburg, 105.6 FM.
All right, on that note, like I said it, on the line we have Warrant Officer Ngwane. Warrant Officer Ngwane, we missed you last week. How are you doing today? And tell us what's happening on our roads.
So far, so good. I cannot complain. We're looking at an accident that is on North Coast Road. That is Krisani, by the way, formerly known North Coast Road and Blackburn Road. There is an accident. They expect delays. And also Newlands East. The new name is Musa Dada and the Nandi Drive. We've got also an accident there. Expect some delays. Entry is bound coming from Pietermaritzburg to Durban. We've got a broken down vehicle that makes slow moving traffic. Then N3, we will have a long-term lane closure between Hammersdale and Key Ridge. It will be closed. Fast lane will be closed as of yesterday till December. So far, that lane will be closed. Expect some delays on that road. And let's us give Sanral a chance to make sure that they improve our roads. We've got ongoing road works, N2, N3, M4, all those roads, they've got that road works that is taking place. Expect delays when you're traveling on those roads. Other than that, our roads are safe and clear. For now, it's clean. Travel is safe. So far, thanks a lot, BIBI, and your listeners. Till next week, I'm Warrant Officer Ngwane from Durban Metropolis.
We'd love to meet you. Pay us a visit. Radio Al-Ansar.
Do you or your children suffer from asthma, chronic obstructive lung disease, or any other lower respiratory condition? Are you a smoker or an ex-smoker? Or do you work in a polluted environment? Lung Shield's 10-year-old formula promotes general lung health by reducing oxidative stress and inflammation in the lungs while boosting your immune system. For optimal lung health, get Lung Shield or Lung Shield Serve for Kids, available at your nearest pharmacy. Visit Lung Shield's Facebook page or lungshield.co.za for more info and hundreds of customer reviews.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness. And every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and freezer card calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031 208 9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
اللهم احفظ المسجد الأقصى من اليهود الحاقدين. اللهم أعد المسجد الأقصى إلى رحاب المسلمين. اللهم وطهر المسجد الأقصى من اليهود الغاصبين. اللهم عليك بهم فإنهم لا يعجزونك يا قوي يا متين. اللهم منزل الكتاب مجري السحاب هازم الأحزاب سريع الحساب اهزم اليهود وزلزلهم يا قوي يا عزيز.
Getting you through your day. Radio Al-Ansar.
Place where I belong, where the olive trees are grown, and the roots are pure and strong. I am wishing for the dawn, where I walk and see the dawn. See, I've waited, but I'm broken. I wanna go home. Oh, I wanna go home.
Topic of the day.
Eyes again, and I saw the same old picture that is freezing in that frame. I am so close, but yet so far. I'm a stranger, so take me back home. Take me back to that time where things felt just alright. Boring was the highlight, now it's stuck in twilight. Never meant to be this way, humans using pain to gain. But defiance is our way, freedom will be back one day.
Yeah, I'm an optimist, one day I know I feel it. The day that we go home and no fear about it. But now Ben Gurion got the trigger on me, treating us like we're low-life criminals. But the only criminals are the instigators. When they came to our land.
And of course, indeed, it's 90.4 FM in Durban and 105.6 FM in Pietermaritzburg. And if you've just joined us, welcome with open arms. Of course, it is the Feel Good Friday. And I'm the on-air presenter for today. If you want to check out exactly what's happening behind the scenes with the dynamic team today, it's Beniso on my right, my amazing brother on my left, making things happen here on the Feel Good Friday. Of course, you can tune in, check us out on YouTube as well as on Facebook, so you can see exactly what's happening right here on Radio Al-Ansar 90.4 FM in Durban and 105.6 FM in Pietermaritzburg. And of course, right about now, it is
Topic of the day.
Now, an estimated 700,000 people commit suicide yearly, and nowhere is suicidal rates more serious than the Kingdom of Lesotho, which records an estimated 87 suicides per 100,000 people. Now, mental illness is described as the white man's disease in Lesotho, and in the mindset with deadly consequences. It is perceived that depression or mental health concerns are white people's diseases in Lesotho. Now, another country not so far from Lesotho is Namibia, which, despite the small population, has a staggering suicide rate. However, Namibia's suicidal state is quite unique when compared to the other countries. Now, in Namibia's case, a majority of those who commit suicide are men, and according to official records, 82% of those who commit suicide in Namibia are men. And also worrisome is the concern of several Namibian men attempting thought of taking their own life. What may be triggering suicidal thoughts amongst Namibian? Of course, to gain more insights into the sensitive topic is, of course, a special guest from Namibia. And on the line we have is a senior psychology lecturer from the University of Namibia. He's also the Secretary General, Windhoek Islamic Center in Namibia. He's the Executive Director of Africa Development as well as and Education Foundation, and an established researcher and author. And of course, welcoming to the Feel Good Friday, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Dr. Armas Abdul Malik Shikongo. Welcome to the Feel Good Friday.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope you can hear me very well that side.
We can hear you loud and clear. But of course, let's get straight into it. Now, a man commits suicide daily in Namibia. What are the fundamental causes?
Well, let me wish greetings and peace to everyone, especially your listeners. Well, thank you very much for inviting me to this program. It's always a pleasure to engage the community, to explain issues. I always see it as my role also as a psychologist to do what we call psychoeducation when we discuss some of these kind of issues as well. Well, whenever we are trying to understand a problem, we always try to avoid taking what we call in academia a reductionistic perspective, meaning that just trying to find one single factor and you say, no, this is what is actually causing everything. So what we always try to do is to look at problems from a more nuanced type of more complex kind of perspective, meaning that we try to find what are the causes, yes, of course, but also sometimes what are the contributing factors. Now, when it comes to suicide in Namibia, and of course in Africa in general, we know we have also an element of culture that sometimes really has a lot of what we call negative factors that can contribute to some of these problems. Of course, one of the issues, especially from a cultural perspective or traditional perspective, especially in terms of gender roles, is the issue that we sometimes refer to as toxic masculinity. You know, when you talk about toxic masculinity is when we somehow as men, sometimes we think ourselves so strong, so powerful, and that somehow even when we have problems, we are supposed to simply kind of mend them away kind of a thing, which is obviously not possible. Just like we cannot just, fight diseases, physical, medical diseases purely by, invoking our manhood. The same thing with any other illness, including mental illnesses. So when it comes to suicide, of course, there are a number of factors that have been reported, found also in literature, and of course in Namibia specifically, especially in terms of the media reports. One of them, of course, is that we find that because there's a high level of unemployment in Namibia, we find that that actually tends to put a lot of pressure on men, and sometimes they feel so useless if they cannot provide, and then they end up resorting to self-harm, and even in some cases, tragically, they also actually not only kill themselves, but also kill other people in the process, whether it's their partners, in some cases, even their children. But one of the problems is that we have not learned the better way of solving problems, especially through peaceful means, or even making use of the services that are available, especially when you talk about clinical psychological services, or in some cases, even psychiatric professional services that are available. Because we tend to, just as you have indicated, like in Lesotho, which is quite a very tragic perception that psychological problems somehow are white people's problems. But, as Africans, if I may ask, why do we consult sangomas? Why do we consult witch doctors? For what reason we go there? It means that even in our own cultures, we have psychological problems, but the problem in Africa, we tend to look at them purely from a superstitious perspective. And that is why we always find ourselves in this sort of self-created trap where we cannot see ourselves through problems, even when the solutions are actually there. So for me, one of the problems is there's an element of culture. Of course, there's also issues of socioeconomic problems, as I'm saying, in the context of high unemployment, but also just inability to really resolve issues, sometimes peacefully. And even substance abuse can also create problems where people actually, when they are in a depressed state of mind, for example, they can't think straight. So they can do all kinds of things, and before they know it, they have done something totally regrettable or even irreversible in the case of suicide. So I hope that kind of give a bit of an answer that it's not a one factor kind of issue. We always have to look at contextual issues as well. But in general, in Namibia, that's how I can actually paint the situation.
Absolutely. Now, there are quite some stigmatizations or wrong perceptions, regarding mental health conditions. Now, in some parts of Namibia, as well as parts of Africa, this discussion is often considered, a taboo. Now, what role, as a psychologist like yourself, able self in Namibia take to undo this, perception?
Well, we must also look at the things from a more historical perspective. Like in Namibia, if I may just tell you, characterize for you the history of clinical psychology or psychology in Namibia. Among the very first students in the history of Namibia to study psychology at the university level. Whoever studied psychology before independence, they must have gone outside Namibia, because before Namibia got its independence, which was 1990, there was not a single academic institution that was teaching psychology. So the very first psychology department was only established in 1994. In fact, when we actually started with the University of Namibia as a university in its own right. Before that, it was just called an academy, and that's where some of us started. So already we have had already a problem in terms of people simply even knowing what is psychology about, In fact, whenever I tell people I've done psychology, it's like, what are you going to do with psychology? It's like, because people cannot even relate to it. However, since we started the department grew very fast. There were even points where we even registered students close to 500 in the psychology, introduction to psychology. So it became a very popular, course, because people also started looking at it purely from a life skill kind of perspective, where actually you are like learning how to really live and understand yourself, understand other people and stuff like that. Now, with that kind of history and the colonial history, which was highly traumatic also for us as African, that is also part of the context that we have to look at some of these things. Now, in terms of the services, now this is another problem, because we now also have very few psychologists who are actually either in private practice. Generally, then they only service a very narrow section of the population, people on medical aids and stuff like that. Then we have got our rural areas also, and some informal settlements where people are generally not reached by some of these professional psychology services. So you also have that problem as well. And most of the people also who actually specialize in psychology, they hardly want to work out in the field, either in the community, especially in rural areas, because in some cases, people don't even understand what is your role, because generally people, when they have problems, they either go to a traditional sort of healer or a witch doctor, as we would say, or a pastor who would generally look at things purely from a spiritual sort of religious type of moral perspective, but they may not really have the professional clinical sort of modern way of looking at some of these issues. So we have a large population of unreached people when it comes to psychological services. So, but now in my case, what I've been doing, I've been reaching out very seriously through the media, through TV, through radio, through written, also print media, basically doing what we call psychoeducation, where we discuss serious issues around psychology, whether it's schizophrenia, whether it's depression, whether it's all kinds of problems. And we are trying to normalize the discourse around talking about psychological issues so that we are able to remove the stigmas and the taboos around some of these issues. And generally, people respond very well because, in fact, they start actually understanding issues that this is purely something familiar. It's just that maybe it's a terminology that sometimes we use to describe our psychological problems.
Now, also according to the official records, common psychological challenges faced by learners in Namibian schools include academic stress. It includes academic stress and pressure, which are prevalent among, Namibian learners due to high expectations, competitive environments, and of course, emphasis on the academic achievement. Now, this can lead to obviously anxiety, depression, and burnt out. So what measures or interventions have been taken in Namibia to address this?
Well, the government has also been putting some funds in terms of training psychologists, whether school psychologists, clinical psychologists, industrial psychologists, school educational psychologists. So the government has been trying its best in terms of just making sure that there is human resource development in that area. And recently, as Otto has been opening up in terms of creating positions in government to make sure that they are able to recruit, because one of the problems is that because we didn't have psychologists historically, they're not even part of the, employment sort of a formal sector because, there were no people like that actually, One would know what is a doctor, what is a lawyer, what is a nurse, a soldier and stuff, but one would hardly, and of course, social work, people know about social workers and psychiatrists to some extent. But when you talk about psychologists, either a school psychologist or industrial psychologist, there were very few as such, even in terms of the industry, they were not really having spaces. So with that, the government has been trying to do things from the grassroots level in terms of making sure that there are trained people. Then the other issue, of course, it also has introduced the subject called life skills teachers. And some of these teachers, generally, they also are expected to obviously have some teacher training education, but also they are expected to have some social science exposure, whether it's social work or psychology. And that way, they are able to actually help even within schools that they are teaching, yes, but they are also sort of providing life skills where they also integrate psychological services more from a preventive perspective. And then, of course, when there are problems, they obviously engage professionals either to intervene directly in a targeted way, or they actually refer in cases where there are actually problems that needs professional attention. So the awareness is there. There are efforts that are put there, but they are still not enough because the level of understanding the importance of psychological service is still very low. Although there are also a lot of private companies and agencies that are also coming through, like your Childline Namibia, where they also provide even call-in, especially crisis call-in services, especially in cases of serious psychological problem like suicide and stuff like that. So the government has been making effort, especially through the Ministry of Education, through the Ministry of Health and Social Services, and they have been trying their best from that angle. So at the societal level, there are efforts, But because of the fact that it's a historically unknown territory, you find that there are very few professionals in the field. So that also makes it very difficult to actually service the whole population that is actually needs the service. Yeah.
Now, a lot of people might be confused, especially because depression and mental health, you can't necessarily see these conditions like how you would have a flu and things like that. So at what age does mental health condition often emerge? Is it childhood, adolescence, or even adulthood?
Well, one of the things that we need to understand is that psychology is a very broad field, okay? It starts right even before the person is born. For example, you find that when you talk about fetal alcohol syndrome, for example, we find that it starts right in the stomach of the mother when they are pregnant. And some of the problem can even start right before birth. So problems, we take them right from before birth until basically death, you can say, old age, basically. The whole lifespan development. There are all kinds of problems, different types of problems. So unless we are looking at a very specific sort of disease in terms of its onset, it's how it develops and all that. But generally, when you talk about just psychological problems in general, or disorders or clinical conditions, they are at each and every stage of human development. So an infant can have psychological problems, for example, cognitive impairment, for example. A child can have all kinds of problems. It could be attention deficit disorder. It could be defiant disorder or whatever. An adolescent can have different kind of problems. An adult can have different kinds of problems, the same with an old age. So when we look at psychological problems, we don't confine them to one stage of human development because they are starting and they are everywhere. It's just a matter of which one exactly are we looking at. Of course, there are some that are more prevalent in certain age groups, but the psychological problems, they affect the whole human lifespan development of a human being. As long as you're on planet Earth, you'll be affected one or the other by a psychological problem, one type or the other. So, but there are, for example, when you talk about, let's say, schizophrenia tend to affect people, which is generally what we know when we say somebody is mad or psychologically disturbed, because that one is the most obvious thing, where the person may be out of touch with reality, they are walking naked, they talk to themselves, they are violent, whatever. So it's a bit more dramatic. So that is easy to recognize, but the rest of other problems are not so easy to pick up unless one is trained or a person talks about them. So, but in terms of age sort of specificity, we cannot really pinpoint to say only at this age, unless we are talking about a specific disorder, which may be associated with a particular stage like schizophrenia. It generally starts in late childhood, early adolescence, and late, early adulthood. That's when we track, for example, schizophrenia. And even in terms of diagnosis, we generally diagnose it from that point. But there are so many other problems that can be uniquely for affecting children. For example, when we talk about, let's say, anxiety disorders, generally we associate them with childhood. But then later they can also result in adult personality problems, whether it's anxiety disorders, whether it's social phobia, whether it's panic disorders, or whatever. That can also be even be with a person even in old age adult sort of stage. So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, absolutely does. But now, how does someone know if they're mentally unstable? For times individual having this condition may not realize they are actually mentally unstable. So what symptoms should one look out for?
Well, generally we have got three main characteristics. We call them clinical features or clinical sort of indicators. One is harm or distress, or somebody is complaining about not feeling well, for example, or not thinking well, or not behaving well. So we look at cognitively in terms of knowledge. We look at the mental in terms of thoughts and emotional processes and stuff like that. But we also look at the level of distress. If a person feels that they are very sad, they are pained by a particular experience, for example, trauma or whatever. So that can be one way we look at it, distress. The other one is what we call interpersonal functioning, how other people are actually interacting with that individual or that particular individual interacting with others. For example, if a person is constantly in fights with others, or is not able to maintain relationships, or is not able to maintain cordial relations with other people. So it's interpersonal, meaning that there's something wrong with the interaction functioning of the person. Then we also look at what we call occupational functioning. For example, let's say you have a work or job, but you are not able to perform, meaning that there is some issues around your performance that suggest that there's a problem. Either you are troubled or you are, depressed or something like that, and then you are no more able to perform. And then, of course, you may be experiencing issues of absenteeism, substance abuse, because also that's how it can manifest. Sometimes, instead of people actually resorting to what we call positive coping mechanisms, they resort to negative coping mechanism, where they either abuse substance or they harm themselves, or they even end up actually harming others in the process. So it's a matter of awareness and knowing that, okay, if there's a problem, this is how it manifests. And of course, in psychopathology, which is a branch of psychology, which we call also abnormal psychology, there's a lot of knowledge that has been gained through research, experience, and stuff like that, that can clearly tell us this is a problem, these are the clinical features, this is how we make a diagnosis, and this is how you differentiate one psychological disorder from another. And there's a whole lot of literature around that. So obviously, if you're talking about a professional psychologist, definitely they are trained in picking up some of these issues. And in fact, anyone for that matter, you may always find that maybe there's something atypical here, there's something strange, there's something abnormal. The person is, for example, let's say you know someone, they are always happy and bubbly and stuff like that. The next time, they are no more like that. So that can clearly tells you now there's a change somewhere in the mood, change in the attitude, change in the behavior, in their thought patterns and stuff like that. And clearly, that's where you can start picking up signs. However, as an untrained sort of mind, you can't just make a diagnosis and say this person is having this problem.
Absolutely.
That has to be left to the professionals, because that's when we say a psychological problems, especially when it's a disorder, it requires professional mental health practitioners' intervention. It can't just be done by someone, at a pub or at a social event, and then you start saying, oh, this person is like that. Of course, there are some problems that are quite obvious. For example, if somebody is depressed, you can clearly see that the person is not happy. So that can be obvious. You said, Aka, the person is depressed, but you don't know what is the cause the depression. When did this start? You see. So you may make that basic diagnostic sort of a labeling, but you may not know the complexity of the problem and how to resolve it, which is much more important.
Now, most mental illnesses cannot be cured. However, what measures can we take to effectively minimize the symptoms so the individual may function at school or even at work or any social environments?
Well, let me just maybe correct you there. Not most mental health. Actually, there are very few psychological problems that are sort of difficult to really manage. And one of them is schizophrenia, yes, which only requires management either through psychiatric medication or actually the combination of psychological intervention and then other interventions. However, majority of psychological problems, they are actually manageable. They can be, you can use the word cured, they can be managed, they can be handled. It's just a matter of professional intervention and preferably coupled with early intervention, because only once the problem is picked up early, the intervention can become more effective. But once the intervention is late, then the problem might be acute and quite severe or profound. At that stage, it may be difficult, yes, to actually manage it. But majority of problems, they are actually manageable. It's just a matter of making sure that you seek professional attention early and that a proper diagnosis is made. And then obviously the proper intervention or management plan can be actually designed. So generally, most of the psychological issues can be actually managed. Yes, when we talk about schizophrenia, for example, you may find that it's quite very difficult actually to handle and resolve better. And there are also some personality disorders, like, for example, your, like your narcissistic disorder can be very difficult to manage, borderline problems in terms of personality, those can be very difficult to actually manage. But sometimes when we have a complex one, we combine various approaches, both psychological, where the person can go for psychotherapy. The person can also be put on psychiatric medication, especially in cases where there are psychiatric disorders, and obviously social intervention, for example, rehabilitation, change of environment, because some of these things are also rooted in the environment. So if you change the environment, it may also have a better therapeutic outcomes, as we would say. So, but generally, most of the issues can be resolved. Yes, there are also some what I call neuropsychological problems that are quite heavy and difficult to resolve. But majority of psychological issues actually can be resolved either through psychotherapy or a combination of psychiatry and psychology, or even medicine and social interventions. And even spiritually, in fact, especially when we talk about also as Muslims, from an Islamic perspective, we also know that some of the problems that we have are also rooted in our spirituality, in our ethics, our morality, our lifestyles. So you also find that there are also other interventions that can also come from religious or spiritual angles as well, especially now when we talk about holistic mental sort of health services.
Now, just to conclude the interview for this particular afternoon, what practical measures can an individual take in order to improve his or her mental, well-being holistically?
Well, the very first step we always say is that there must be an acknowledgement and awareness that there's a problem. Because the moment one is in denial that there's a problem, or one is totally ignorant of the problem, or one is actually wrongly attributing the problem, then you have actually a compounded issue now there, because you cannot even start to help the person. So generally what we are saying is that, first of all, educate yourself also about psychology in general. There's a lot of information, not just pop psychology, but also proper literature out there, especially in this day and age, where even information is freely available, whether it's on YouTube, on any other sites on the internet, on books that are available. These days, information is freely available. So there's no excuse really for ignorance. But at the personal level, one obviously has to have an awareness that, yes, this is an issue that may need self-management. This is an issue that may need professional intervention. And once we make that distinction, you'll be able to seek help. But the problem is sometimes we want to self-medicate only to find that we cannot really resolve the issue. For example, if you've got a serious trauma and now you resort to substance abuse, not only are you actually not resolving the problem, but you are creating new ones. You see, because, for example, with substance, there's even issues of addiction. So you are actually creating a serious vicious cycle. But if you are aware that, no, I have a problem, but I need to see a professional, then the best thing is to actually seek out that professional help. Otherwise, I always tell people that, for example, if you've got a car and or a phone for that matter, that you need to read the manual, how this phone works, okay? How our minds work? We need to find out how do our mind works, for example. And, okay, if there's a problem, where do I go? If your phone has a mechanical problem, do you try to do it yourself, or you try to take it to an expert? So the same thing with our psychological issues. Just like we do with any other thing in our lives, you have to go to the expert, the people who are specialized in the area, to help you deal with the problem. So, but now if you go to a wrong expert, like fake people out there who don't even know anything, they don't have any specialized knowledge or professional knowledge, then you are actually harming yourself. So it is always good to, first of all, acknowledge that there's a problem. Two, you need to know, who do I go to if I have this problem? Do I need to see a social worker? Do I need to see a psychologist? Do I need to see a psychiatrist? And in fact, in some cases, you even get referred. Even if you go to a wrong mental health practitioner on first instance, you can still be referred because, Once then the other professional knows now, this is beyond me, they obviously ethically bound to make a referral. So what we are saying is that you must first check if you have an issue. Is it something that is within your capacity to deal with and cope with, or is something that requires intervention? And that's where we are always doing psychoeducation to say, you know what? For example, this is depression. This is how it manifests. These are the clinical features. If you've got a problem like this, please talk to this person like that. Or you go and find help from them. So these are the practical measures that we can take in terms of self-education, self-empowerment, and making sure that we do not look for solution from wrong sources. Otherwise, we'll get messed up, actually.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Armas Abdul Malik Shikangu, thank you so much for joining me today on the Feel Good Friday. Hoping that we'll be able to chat to you perhaps in a later stage, and you can maybe give us more insight on this particular topic.
Good. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm ever available. I'm at your service. Next time you want to engage me, just reach out. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's only a pleasure. Of course, indeed, it's 90.4 FM in Durban and 105.6 FM in Pietermaritzburg. If you're listening to us wherever you are, in your homes as well as in your cars, it is the Feel Good Friday. Stay tuned. Still lots to come.
The views and opinions expressed by the presenters and guests of Radio Al-Ansar are not necessarily the views and opinions of Radio Al-Ansar and the Al-Ansar Foundation.
Nando's Westfield Mall delivers in and around your area. Put your feet up and use your thumbs. Download our app on Google Play, iStore, or Huawei App Gallery. You can order online on www.nandos.co.za or call 031-266-0684 and satisfy your peri-peri cravings. Let Nando's Westfield Mall bring the peri to you.
Attention all shopaholics and fashion enthusiasts. Get ready for the ultimate shopping extravaganza at the Durban Shopping Fest. Join us from the 5th to 7th July for an unforgettable experience filled with incredible deals, trendy fashion, and so much more. Discover the latest fashion trends, explore a wide range of local and international brands, and indulge in mouth-watering food from the best pop-ups in town. Plus, enjoy live entertainment and exciting activities for the whole family. Don't miss out on the Durban Shopping Fest, where shopping dreams come true. Mark your calendars and join us at Saxony Westwood Mall. See you at the Durban Shopping Fest. Only the best.
The Outreach Slice of Life campaign. Since its inception, our Slice of Life has touched the lives of countless individuals through our distribution to schools, old age homes, orphanages, and deserving families within our community. This initiative has been instrumental in alleviating hunger. For only 9 Rand a loaf, you will be providing a family with their daily staple, bread. Donate now on www.alansar.org.za or call Outreach on 031 208 1601.
In order to streamline our operations and ensure your donations reach those in need swiftly and efficiently, the Al-Ansar Relief and Welfare has updated banking details for the Lillah and Sadqa contributions. Bank FNB, account name Outreach Al-Ansar, account type check account, account number 63100203081, branch Florida Road. Your generosity fuels our mission to uplift communities, provide essential aid, and offer hope to those facing adversity. With these new banking details, your donations will continue to make a profound impact on the lives of countless individuals in need. Jazakallah for your continued support, and together we can create positive change and spread compassion far and wide.
We'd love to meet you. Pay us a visit. Radio Al-Ansar.
Allah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah. Allahu Akbar. You could have searched for 1,000 hours, wouldn't have made a change. You could have looked for 1,000 days and you would have stayed the same. It's only by the will of God that you're here today. Just remember who you are before you walk away.
Radio Al-Ansar.
Blessings he gave, no point even counting. I made so many thousands and I gave it away to the poor. I'm just praying I'm making some more, cause I only wanna please my Lord. Allah's my witness and I know he's watching me for sure. I got rid of the interest, I ain't looking at waging a war. Other places that I haven't been yet and I really just wanna explore. But if I die tomorrow, hope I die with my head on the floor. Take me away. to fear. Still they choose to deny. Running around in lost, chasing their own desire. Before the trumpet blows, save them from the fire. Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah, subhanallah, walhamdulillah, la ilaha illallah, Allahu akbar. Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, la ilaha illallah, Allahu akbar.
And of course, indeed, it's 90.4 FM in Durban and 105.6 FM in Peter Maritzburg. Alhamdulillah, we've come to the end of yet another amazing edition of the Feel Good Friday. But before we run away, I have a special guest with me in studio. And we, of course, are going to be welcoming him to the Feel Good Friday, the voice of the Feel Good Friday, just by the way. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you doing today, brother?
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It's so good to see you. It's so, you're always busy. It's so hard to get, hold of you. And finally, we get you in studio, the voice of the Feel Good Friday. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Oh, yes, it's a pleasure to be here.
Lovely stuff. How's your week been?
Oh, my week's been actually very chilled, very relaxed. Haven't been up to much, but keeping myself active, keeping my brain active, that's necessary.
I think that's always important. But I think, did you enjoy the show today? I mean, you were sitting in throughout, and which I appreciate the fact that you've come through to sit in and see how things are done. Maybe you'll be somebody who will be, I would say, a resident here on the show. How's that?
Oh, yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I really liked the whole interview you had with the doctor, and it's very insightful to know how mental illness has, impacted on our environment and our people in very negative ways. And, there's always a lot of ways to counter those things. And it's very insightful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. Well, nevertheless, listeners, thank you so much, Brother Asif, for joining me today. Inshallah, next week, same time, same place?
Oh, pleasure.
Same time, same place. Indeed, it is. It is where it's at the Feel Good Friday, the place where all the vibes and all the good stuff happen, and fantastic interviews right here for you as well. It's 90.4 FM in Durban. If you would like to send in your feedback, feel free. You can send it to us via our WhatsApp numbers. That's 0609041056. A big shukran to my technician, Sponisum Kiza SG. Making it happen on this Friday afternoon, of course. And if you enjoyed listening to us, please, you can send your comments too as well through our WhatsApp numbers. It's 0609041056. Of course, it's always fun coming here and keeping you company for these amazing hours. Of course, up next, you can tune in. And of course, there is the Social Network with Zahir Bassam. Thereafter, that's the Afternoon Jam with Fahim Jamida. And then after that is the Strength Talk with Siraj Bassam. Spiritual Cures by Max Khan, maximizing your inner self. And then there is Let's Chat with Faisal MJ Suleiman. And there you can just enjoy what the Radio Al Ansar team has to offer for you. But of course, it's been fun. It's been exciting. Don't forget to join me next week, same time, same place. Inshallah, next week we are going to be chatting to somebody who everybody would want to chat about and chat to. So of course, stay tuned, stay peeled. Follow me on Instagram, BIBI AMINA_worldwide on Instagram, and on Facebook it's BIBI AMINA PHILI. Until next time, if you listen, you will learn. If you do not listen, of course you will not learn. On that note, it's been fun, it's been exciting. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Something is about to go down. Let's go. This is your radio.
From Durban, South Africa to the world.
The Feel Good Friday with BIBI AMINA